As I say good morning again, beloved community. If you don't know me, I think all of us here do, but if you're watching and you don't know me, I'm Reverend Elisha Christopher. I'm the spiritual director here at this Center for Spiritual Living in Santa Cruz. I do use they and them pronouns, and my ancestors came from all over the world, but the ones who immigrated to this country immigrated here from Ireland, Scotland, Austria, and Holland. And so our theme for the month of May is Raise Your Voice. Raise your voice, which feels very appropriate. It's kind of like what's happening right now. Many people are being called to raise our voices, to get out in the streets, to speak up for what is right, for what is true. And it's powerful for me to remember that these themes come to us sometimes planned a year in advance, and that this is what was placed here for us to contemplate, to remember, to be reminded of this month, right now. And this week, the theme within that theme is boundary keepers. Ooh, now there's an invitation. That we all get to be the boundary keepers. We get to say what is allowed in our space. What's allowed in our consciousness? What's allowed in our community? And I've been thinking a lot about the power of boundaries this week. And in our synthesis work, some of you have been in some of my synthesis classes, one of the principles we talk about is that boundaries and containers are necessary for creation. Boundaries and containers are necessary for creation. Because the universe is always waiting for us to create. The universe is always participating with us. And when we're unclear, when we just say, I want it all, or everything's okay, or it's all good. It is. And we leave no container, right? That we must have a clear and sacred container around what it is that we're creating, around who it is we're claiming we want to be, around the kind of life or the kind of nation or the kind of community that we want to be in. And it's only when we know what our boundaries are that we can uphold them. And it's also only when we know what our boundaries are that we can know if they've been crossed. Which is a big spiritual practice, I think, for a lot of us, holding our boundaries and our containers. And saying, this is what is required for me to stay in my center. This is what is required for me to stay in my sacred space. And I like to think of these container boundary creations as, what's the prayer? What's the ritual? What is the story that you're seeking to live in? And maybe those boundaries and containers are the agreements you have with yourself. Maybe it's about the kind of self-talk or the kind of thoughts you're not allowed to think. Maybe it's the foods you don't touch. Maybe it's the kind of people you don't interact with. Right? Those are clear containers of self that say, this is what I need to maintain my sacred center. And then we can draw those larger and larger circles, right? We have a container of this community. And there's a lot of maybe even unspoken agreements about what it means to participate in that container, but we feel it when we're here. And I think one of the best ways we know where our boundaries are, one of the best ways we get the insight, right, is when they get crossed. And we go, oh, that did not work. That hurt. I didn't like how that happened. My circle has been violated. And we also have to remember that in certain situations and in certain kinds of relationships, life, certain individuals may attempt to chip away at those boundaries, to chip away at those agreements. And it's really easy to sort of let one thing slide, let another thing slide, and let that circle become more opaque, right? Until maybe sometimes we realize that that line has been crossed a long time ago, but it happened so slowly, we didn't notice it was happening. Ever been there? Okay. This thing is happening to all of us on a national and global level. Right? There are powers at B that are attempting to chip away at our agreements, to chip away at our boundaries, to chip away at what we know is right. And how many times has something happened in this country in the last number of weeks or months that probably crossed the line, but you went, right? Did you get up? Did you stand up? Did you speak out? Did you reclaim the line? Right? Or are we being beaten down by the consistent line crossing? Right? And so there's a call for us to come back to our center, to each one of us to get very clear about what are the lines that cannot be crossed, and hold them strong. Hold them for our safety. Hold them for each other. Because if we just keep letting the line get smaller, the circle get smaller and smaller and smaller, then there's nothing left to hold. And so we have to have strong containers for ourselves, for the kind of speech that we allow in our presence, for the kind of laws we allow in our country. Because I tell you, friends, there are many lines that have been crossed in the last number of weeks and months that are absolutely not okay. Right? And that we have got to keep pushing that line further and further out to say, you are not going to touch me. You are not going to touch my family. You are not going to touch my neighbors. You are not going to touch my community. We're not going to touch the Constitution. Thank you, Marcia. Right? And that these are lines that cannot be crossed. These are our agreements about how we have said we want to be together in this nation. And so we have to hold firm to those boundaries, just like each one of us has to hold firm to our own boundaries in our own relationships, right? And not give ourselves away, not let those lines be crossed, but learn how to be in communication with each other so that my bubble and your bubble can bump up against each other in a way that makes both of us feel more safe, that feels both of us feel more seen, rather than when our boundaries bump up against each other and we feel unsafe, right? We feel like those lines have been crossed. And so I think that in a big way right now, our work for each one of us is to get really deeply clear about what our values are, about what we stand for, about the kind of people that we want to be, about the kind of community that we want to be in, about the kind of nation that we want to live in. Because it's built by each one of us. We are creating this together. So take a breath. And just go within for a moment, if you're comfortable doing that, closing your eyes maybe. And just imagine that you can draw a circle around yourself. And just think for a moment in relationships, in this community, in your own family, what's allowed inside that circle of you? What thoughts, what ways of doing and being, what ways of speaking, what actions are allowed inside of that circle? And then think for a moment about what are the things that need to stay outside of that circle for you to feel centered and empowered and in your wholeness. Think about what boundaries are required to hold that space. And then imagine you could expand that and draw another larger circle around your community, however you identify that. Maybe that's your family. Maybe that's this CSL Santa Cruz community. Maybe that's our county or our state. But draw a larger circle. And just imagine for a moment what safe and healthy boundaries around that circle look like. The kind of agreements that we need to hold with each other. And then let's draw an even larger circle around our nation. And just hold for a moment a vision of a safe and sacred container around this nation. And just hold that yet again, drawing another larger circle around our planet. And just imagine for a moment at each of these levels, how would our lives be different if we had safe and sacred agreements around each one of these containers to help us maintain our center, to help us interact with each other, to help us hold each other? And take a deep breath and come back. And the last thing I want to say as we bring this topic into mind this morning is when it comes to our boundaries and our containers, the deep practice is for each one of us to get absolutely clear about our yeses and our nos, around what our soul, our spirit, our intuition, our heart and mind says yes to, and what are the things that it says no to. And I'll tell you, friends, each and every one of us, your body always knows your yeses and your nos. Always. You can feel it. For me, I feel it right about here, in the power center of my body. When decisions come up, when things happen in our nation, in our community, in our world, when people say something to me, when I make a choice, I can feel it in my body. There is always a strong yes or a strong no. And how many times have any one of us experienced the thing we didn't want to experience because inside something said no and outside we said yes anyways? Right? And so we cannot be in agreement in any way with our no's. We have to listen to the no and follow it. We have to listen to the yeses and follow it. And those yeses and nos, that deep inner guidance will tell each and every one of us in every moment where we need to go, what we need to do, what we need to say, what we need to speak up for, what we need to let go. That truth is always there. And so take a moment, and I just want to ask each one of us just to scan your body. And just notice where that deep inner guidance, that deep inner voice you feel in your physical self. And maybe even place a hand there for a moment. And feel that core, that center point. And as you hold that power space, let us drop into prayer together. So take another deep breath in and breathe. And so as we breathe together, each one of us holding our power center, remembering that there is a voice, remembering that there is a presence, remembering that there is a power so much greater than we are. This power that shines the sun, that grows the trees, that spins the planets and galaxies. The one power that's been unfolding throughout evolution, that's been creating, unfolding all things throughout all of time, is the same power and presence, the same wisdom, the same voice that is living and breathing in each one of us. And so as we place our hand on that power center, as we breathe ever deeper, I want to remind each one of us that that still small voice is speaking to us. And let's invite that still small voice to raise its voice, to speak to us a little louder, to speak to us a little clearer, so that each one of us has this perfect divine compass that is active within us, That when every decision comes our way, when every interaction moves past us, as we unfold through life, as we be with each other, that the voice of the yes and the voice of the no screams loudly from within us so that we can hear it, so that we can follow it, so that it can empower us, so that we can be absolutely clear about what is ours to do, about what is ours to say, about what is ours to resist, about what is ours to create. Each one of us is here in this moment with purpose, on purpose, for a purpose. Each one of us is here in this great turning, in this time of transformation, in this time of destruction and recreation. Each one of us is here on purpose, and we are here to create. We are here to co-create. We are here to be part of the unfolding of the more, and in order to do that, we have to create the container for creation. And so we say yes to what is ours. We say no to what is not. We draw that circle around ourselves, around our community, around our nation, and we get extremely clear about what is allowed inside of each one of those sacred circles of creation. And we are led by our values. We are led by our truth. We are led by something greater than we are. That is calling us to raise our voice, to speak when our voice is shaky, but to act as if the path is clear. Stay true to the voice inside you. There are plenty of external voices to listen to, but when we are clear, they're just noise. And let the still small voice be the one that speaks. Let clarity emerge. So that each one of us is led by a vision of what's possible. So that we are a people who continuously moves towards that which we are creating, not away from that which is falling away. Let us speak to the future. Let us speak to the possible. Let us create the something more through our words, through our choices, through our activities, through all of our interactions, through every one of our ways of doing and being. We are creating. So let each one of us be a center for spiritual living. Let each one of us be a center for spiritual life. Let us each one of us be a center of creation. And so I speak a word of gratitude this morning for this group of individuals who are here in this moment, hearing these words, saying yes to their own inner voice, to their own inner guidance, saying yes to being conscious creators, saying yes to drawing that powerful circle around ourselves, and saying that only that which is true, only that which is just, only that which is sacred is allowed in this circle. And in my presence, in my circle, there is no room for injustice. There is no room for racism. There is no room for power over. There is only room for power with. There is only room for power towards. There is only room for us to co-create together with and for each other as we lift each other up. And as we work in co-creation and in agreement, the circle gets larger. When we find safe space, my circle and your circle overlap, and a larger circle is created. And so let us remember that together we are building a circle of trust, a circle of faith, a circle of creation that's big enough to hold the whole world. And so in that we remember that the earth herself is holding each one of us, that the Great Mother is guiding us. And so in this moment, let us rest, surrender to the breath, surrender to gravity, being held by that infinite source of love that draws all things together. And so we breathe, and we let go. And so it is.